Hello and welcome to the Ask Me Anything for the CrossFit Linchpin private track. It is Thursday, January 14th, 2021, and we're in. A lot of good questions submitted from members today, a lot of great interaction, and I chose 3 questions and to give some good, detailed, thorough answers to instead of doing more questions and answer them in a superficial manner. So hopefully this is beneficial. And the questions are all somewhat interconnected in one way, which is kind of cool. So I've got all my notes here to make sure that I don't become a scatterbrain, get lost down a rabbit hole, and not cover a point that when I was preparing my answers this morning, that I don't neglect to say anything. So first question is from Jill B. Jill KB. Here we go. The deadlift. Who doesn't love the deadlift, let alone a question about the deadlift? The deadlift. Drop at the top or reset every time? Different schools of weightlifting say different things. Which is correct / preferred? I always set back down to complete the lift. Great question. So first of all, I almost already went down a rabbit hole and deviated from my notes. I was going to say, one of the words that you put in there, which is correct. And none of them are correct or incorrect. It just, you can deadlift in multiple ways. You're still deadlifting no matter what way that you do it. You're still not sitting on the couch. You're still doing a functional movement that will serve you well for the rest of your life. It's fantastic. It's just some might have certain benefits in certain situations than others. So the rabbit hole that I almost went down is, somebody might take a very hard stance as to, I somehow am the self-appointed master that will say this is the right way to deadlift, and if you're doing it any other way, you are wrong. It's my camp and it's everybody else's camp. That sort of stuff is not hard to find on the internet. I actually think some people try to gain traction and followers that way. Not really my style. So what I would like to do with this is just explain some varieties in the different sort of deadlifts that Jill mentioned, and you can make the choices that you want to make armed with the knowledge of just what's out there. So there might be more that I'm leaving out, but in general, 3 major big types of deadlifting we're going to talk about is deadlifting where you touch and go every rep, which you see quite frequently in CrossFit. And then there is deadlifting where it's like dead stop deadlifting. So at the bottom of the lift, right, you pick it up, you reach full extension of the knees and hips, you've stood up, you lower the weight back down to the ground. Now, if you're touch and go, as soon as those plates just kiss the ground, you've already started the next rep up, right? Then you've got dead stop deadlifting, whereas when you lower the weight back down, plates hit the ground, you're not pulling it right away. You're resting for a beat or two, like a 1,000, 2 1,000, for example. And in the dead stop deadlift, there's even a couple variations of that. There's one where you maintain tension, even though you're not moving the weight, you're down there in the set position, but you haven't given up tension, and then you pull your next rep. And then there's dead stop where you do reset tension every time. So the weight stops down there at the bottom, and you intentionally let the tension go, let all the bracing go in your body, and then have to get tense and brace all over again before you pull the next rep. So we can say it's touch and go, and then 2 different types of dead stop deadlifting. Those are the 3 that we're going to talk about. But Jill's primary question initially, which was, do you drop at the top or do you not drop at the top? And again, it's not right or wrong. If you're in many powerlifting competitions where, the heaviest deadlift in the world, when you're setting a world record, the record is for picking it up, not necessarily putting it back down to planet Earth. And maybe some competitions say that you can't drop it from the top, that you have to, keep your hands on it and ride it down, blah, blah, blah. But you don't have to necessarily lift it back, lower it back down to the ground under control. So quite frankly, the deadlift range of motion to have a successful, like a successful 1 rep max would be the barbell starts on the ground, and when you deadlift the weight up to full extension of the knees and hips, and you're standing up with the bar fully locked out, you've completed the deadlift. Check that off. Drop it or lower it, totally your choice. And both have their benefits. There's tremendous gain to be had in the lowering. That way you're benefiting not only from the concentric but also the eccentric phases of the movement, both the up and the down. And you get that a lot with touch and go reps, things of that nature, or if you lower it back down to the earth under control. If you're just standing up with it and dropping it, you're kind of getting one of those but not the other. But if you're just saying, hey, I did a 7x1 deadlift and I dropped every rep from the top on that 7x1, do those deadlifts count? And my answer to you would be yes, they absolutely count, for sure. Could you do, let's say, Diane, 21-15-9 deadlifts and handstand push-ups, classic CrossFit workout? Could you do that and you drop every rep from the top of the deadlift? That would be a highly unusual way to perform Diane, but would it quote unquote count is maybe another way to look at the question. And given the nature of the deadlift, I would be tempted to say that yeah, that counts just fine. If you did stood it up, dropped it, got back down, set up, stood it up, there's rep number 2, dropped it, got back down, got set up, stood it up, dropped it. That's how you did your 21-15-9. Then you did deadlifts, absolutely, for sure. And quite frankly, in that situation, in that scenario that I just laid out, I would say that you're making Diane far harder for yourself by dropping it from the top every time than had you just stayed under tension and did touch and go reps for the entire workout. But we're going to kind of get into that there in a second. So let's see. So that, dropping at the top, yep, legal. And then we've got, just for everyone's kind of knowledge, the 3 different types we're going to talk about: touch and go deadlifts, then 2 different types of dead stop deadlifts. And these might be things that after you learn about them a little bit, you might choose to work them into one of your heavy days or something. So let's talk first of all about a dead stop deadlift where you reset tension, okay? So the dead stop was you lift the weight up. Let's say you're going to do a set of 5, okay, like a 5x5. You deadlift the weight up, you lower it back down to the ground, and if you're doing touch and goes, when the plates kiss, you go right back up, and now we're not doing that. The plates touch the ground, you then go ahead and do not pull right away. That weight stays in the ground for, like I said, a 1/1000, 2/1000, for example. And then then for the reset tension, you quite intentionally let your body go. You relax that, pressure in your midline, and your body gets quote unquote loose, for a second. And then you have to get into a proper set position, brace your torso and midline again, so you have midline stabilization and you're safe. And then you pull the next rep. You stand it all the way up. Then you lower the weight back down to the ground. During that 1/1000, 2/1000, you let all of that tension go again. You then re-get all of that tension, and you start again. You do every rep like that. And so it's very challenging. And you might say, why would somebody do that? So a dead stop deadlift with resetting the tension, it trains the setup and the start position very well. So it trains the setup and the start position very well, because you're resetting on every single solitary rep, but you need to gather yourself and be prepared to pull heavy weight again. And so you have to be very intentional and focused about your setup and about the start position. It's extremely fatiguing. If there was potentially a negative, because I would say a positive is that it trains the setup, trains the start, trains the initial pull off the ground very well. A potential downfall is it's very fatiguing, and because of that, you will probably be able to do less work, for example, than had you just maintained tension the entire time and done a traditional touch and go sort of repetition. But again, helps strengthen your initial pull off the floor, since you're not benefiting from the old stretch reflex every single solitary time. And so there's great benefit there. That's the dead stop resetting tension every time. Now the dead stop maintaining tension. It's the same deal where you stand the weight up, you lower the weight back down, weight stays on the ground for a 1/1000, 2/1000, 3/1000, for example, but even though the weight is at a dead stop on the ground, again, you're not doing touch and goes, you never let that tension go in your body. You stayed braced the entire time. You stayed tight the entire time. You kept everything under tension, head to toe, to the best of your ability. You just allowed the weight to dead stop. So the benefits of a dead stop maintaining tension style of deadlift would be very similar to the dead stop resetting tension. It still focuses on the setup, still focuses on your posture, still helps build strength with pulling off the floor, but not to the same degree that the dead stop reset tension would be. So it would be potentially I don't want to say an easier way to do it. That's not the word that I'm searching for, but a less fatiguing sort of a way. And for a novice lifter, maybe a good intermediary step, because intentionally losing tension every time and intentionally resetting it every time, you better be darn sure that when you're intentionally letting all the tension in your body go and then re-tensing everything, that you're doing it right, because the thought is that you're lifting a very heavy weight relative to your capacity. So you want to make sure that you're not just letting go and then re-bracing and then letting go and re-bracing all willy-nilly. You just really want to make sure you're doing it properly. So the dead stop maintaining tension can give you some of the nice benefits of still thinking about your posture, thinking about your setup position, and really developing that strong pull off the ground, but just to a more user-friendly degree than when you're resetting tension every single time. And it's not quite as fatiguing, so ideally you'd be able to do maybe a little bit more work with that. Moving right along, the touch and go deadlift. So this is probably what most people are familiar with in CrossFit and see in CrossFit. And so the touch and go is just that, right? You're keeping your body under tension the entire time. You're deadlifting the weight up, but the very second that those plates hit the ground and kiss the floor, you're on your way right back up again. Most people can perform more reps with more weight in a given time or set, and so that's more work, right? And if we're going back to CrossFit methodology and geeking out a little bit, work is force times distance over time. That gives you average power. Power is intensity, and intensity is the critical factor leading to good things in development overall of our general physical preparedness and our fitness. So you might think, well, great, if I can do more deadlifts, or most people can generally do more deadlifts in that set period of time with the touch and go, that seems like the way that I should do everything, right? Because more work is always better. Yes, but there's a caveat to that, right? I mean, what if potentially you have identified that where you struggle is that initial pull off of the ground? Then you might benefit from intentionally doing some dead stop deadlifts, be it releasing tension or maintaining tension, to help develop a stronger pull off the ground. Or maybe you've identified that when you do a touch and go set at a moderate loading, 2159 or whatever it happens to be, that your brain goes somewhere else, you kind of get lost for a bit, and you start to lose focus on your midline and lose focus on your posture. Well, then potentially doing some dead stop deadlifts where you maintain tension each time might help keep you nice and mission focused on how my body is supposed to be every time when I'm in my setup position, and thereby help your pulling in general, your deadlifting in general, and then good things happen. Another good thing about touch and go deadlifts, time under tension for the muscles is likely greater since you never get a break. They're continuously working the entire time. It's also very taxing on the grip, forcing development there as well. Powerlifters may say that disadvantages are that it does not train speed off the floor or the starting position and the starting pull, as well as some of the other methods that we just mentioned a second there ago. So again, is one right or is one wrong, or is one quote unquote better than another? Not necessarily. They're all deadlifts, and they all do some things a little bit better than other things. And if you have a good understanding of what they are, then you might be able to use them in any way, shape, or form that you see fits your life very well. So let's see. There's one other thing I wanted to touch on here. Okay, so let's see. Variance is a wonderful thing, right? So this is in general, okay, generalities here. 2159, you're doing Diane. 2159, deadlifts and handstand push-ups. I would say, if you had to say, Pat, give me one of those methods that you just spoke about that I'm going to want to do during Diane. It's going to be most likely the touch and go deadlift, okay? The classic deadlift that you probably have in your head and how probably most of you do Diane. Well, now let's say we've got a heavy deadlift day. And like I said, maybe it's a 5x5 deadlift or 5x3, whatever it happens to be. Well, now you've got options. You can do a touch and go, just like we said right there, right? You're going to do your 5x5 deadlift with tension the entire time. As soon as the plates hit the ground, you're already on your way right back up. That works. People have been getting stronger like that for quite some time. Maybe you've been deadlifting for a while and you're like, you know what? Hit a bit of a plateau in my deadlift. I'd like to try something else. Great. This can be a fantastic place to bring in another one of these items. So maybe next time 5x5 deadlift pops up, you're going to do dead stop deadlifts, but maintaining tension every time, right? You're not ready to go into the releasing tension every time. So you're going to get it good and tight. You stand it up. It goes back down to the ground. You're staying strong and tense the entire time, head to toe with your body, but you wait for a 1/1000, 2/1000, 3/1000. Then you pull rep number 2. It goes back down for a 2 or 3 count. I guarantee, you do your 5x5 like that, you'll have a very different experience, head-to-toe experience, and there might be quite different loading on the bar compared to what you're used to doing for a 5x5. And then the other thing that you could try, again, if you are comfortable and competent with it, is the dead stop deadlift, resetting tension every time. And you will also have a wildly different experience. So they're all 5x5 deadlifts, one done touch and go, one done dead stop maintaining tension, one done dead stop resetting tension. And just more tools in your toolbox so you can play with them and be good to go. Now, whatever it is that you choose, and you should always, as I always say, feel authorized to throw those in as you so desire. That's the great thing about these podcasts and the Linchpin conversations and the Ask Me Anythings is we want to make the Linchpin community and ideally the fitness community at large one big happy family of knowledge and information. And then, a 5x5 deadlift comes up and you can then choose to attack that workout in whatever way best suits your particular needs as an athlete. Maybe you know that pulling off the ground is something that you struggle with, and therefore some of the dead stop deadlifts might be a great thing for you to play with. And all you need to do, just use the Beyond the Whiteboard app, right? And when you're logging your loading and your rest times for this fictitious 5x5 deadlift day that we're using, just under the notes section, say what you did. Hey, today I did dead stop deadlifts, maintaining tension. Dead stop was 3 seconds on the ground. Use this loading, et cetera, et cetera. And then the next time that it comes back, you've got some data points to use. So the world of deadlifting, fantastic. And there's some very cool stuff out there. And there's all kinds of other stuff from bands to chains to deficits to whatnot. So, and we're all deadlifting. It's all good. And neither one's, there's no one particular right way or wrong way. They're all just different ways to get yourself fit and hopefully stay happy and healthy and be good to go. All right, so that's question number 1. It's a fantastic question. Question number 2 is very cool because it kind of dovetails into that very nicely. It's from Travis R, and Adrian's question works into Travis's question. So Travis, let me see if I can find your question exactly. It's about lifting belts. Okay, Travis R. Basically, what are your thoughts on using a weight belt? He's heard some people post one way or the other. You should use it, you shouldn't use it, and just kind of what are my thoughts on it. And then Adrian's question, which tagged onto that, was if you are going to use a belt, is there like a certain percentage of your 1 rep max lift that maybe below that percentage you don't need a belt, above that percentage you do need a belt, et cetera, et cetera. So Travis, your question is kind of similar to the first question in a way, Jill's question in a way, and by that I mean I can't give you a binary answer, right? Like, are lifting belts good or bad? Should you use them or should you not use them? It's not that they're good or bad. They serve a function, and understanding that function might help you choose if or when you choose to apply them. Oh, Jill, good. I'm glad you get to hear that. She says, that was a great answer for the deadlift thing. Good. I'm happy to help. So, all right, so here we go. Got my notes again so I don't totally get lost. I'm a bit of a scatterbrain at times. So, the first goal, belt or not, okay, is athletes have to know how to brace properly for the lift. And let's talk about what I mean when I say that, because bracing, getting tension, making sure that you're safe, in a good posture to keep yourself safe, yet ideally appropriately apply force to whatever the movement happens to be. There's multiple ways to say that, and some people in internet land can make it far more complicated than it need be. Okay, I mean, it's not something to be taken lightly, but we're also not splitting atoms. So the first goal is you have to learn how to brace yourself even before you put on the belt. So with no belt, lightweight, got to learn how to brace. And you can also hear people talking about creating intra-abdominal pressure, which sounds lovely. It's like a triple word score in Scrabble, but it might not make sense. You know, if my grandmother came into my garage and she's like, I don't like the nursing home, hearing about this deadlift, I could be able to pick up my grandkids. All right, fine, you've convinced me. I need to learn how to deadlift. What do I need to do? I'm like, all right, Grandma, no problem. First thing, talk to me. Let's get some intra-abdominal pressure going for you. She's like, what are you talking about? So, yes, intra-abdominal pressure is critical, but we need to brace, aka just create tension in your midline so that your midline is not compromised. Midline stability is a huge topic in CrossFit, at least in my humble opinion. People that are truly familiar with the methodology truly understand why we do what we do and truly care about doing the fundamentals and doing the fundamentals well, aka mechanics, then consistency, then intensity, not rushing development, building the foundation before you're interested in going to the 100th floor of the building. The stuff that's not sexy or flashy on Instagram, but will ensure that you are healthy 15 years later. And that's the stuff that we love to do at Linchpin, right? We're not a big flashy, we're not into the flash, we're into the stuff that works. And you've got to be able to brace your midline. And I don't care if you're lifting weights, doing a push-up, whatever it happens to be, you've got to be able to brace your midline. So midline stability, critical component for both safety and maximum just core to extremity power production. Again, classic CrossFit methodology. Now, bracing your midline can sometimes be confused with just flexing your abs or tightening your abs. And don't get me wrong, you don't want your abdominals loose, so you will be creating tension there, but flexing or contracting, flexing or tightening is generally associated with contracting, right? Like we're sucking everything in, trying to get that massive beach six-packs and make our waist small. That's a bit misleading because contraction is not really what we want when we're talking about bracing of the midline. We want expansion, not necessarily contraction. So we want to engage, yes, our abdominals, our spinal erectors, but we also want to engage the obliques, which are on the side of our body, and that is largely going to come through expansion, not contraction. So, you know, back when I was on the level 1 staff, one of the things we used to say, which is an overly simplified cue. So I'm not saying this one cue provides all that you need to know, but an overly simplified cue would be to, you know, to brace your belly as if somebody was going to just slug you in the gut. Okay, so if somebody's going to slug you in the gut, you wouldn't necessarily try to suck your belly button to your spine, right, and make your stomach as little as possible. Like that sort of contraction isn't what you would do. You would almost like suck in a quick air, try to fill your belly with air, and you're almost pressing your abdominals out, and you can feel the sides of your body react to that as well. That's more in line with what we're talking about. Again, it's not getting you all the way there, but it's more in line with what we're talking about than somebody just telling you to tighten your belly or flex your abs or something like that. So think more expansion, not necessarily contraction, when we're talking about the bracing that you'll want to do to protect your midline for a variety of movements. So even before you put on a belt, well before you put on a belt, the athletes needs to have learned how to brace and how to brace properly, and that's going to come through practice. Like everything else, you've just got to practice, and there's a whole bunch of different cues and videos that you can find with a little bit of searching on the topic, and if there's 10 different ways to explain it, 7 of them might not make any sense to you, but then you'll find 3 that just hit home for you, and those will be useful, and somebody else may find a different 3 that makes sense to them. But find some cues, find some videos, learn how to brace in your midline, and that's step 1 before we even talk about, getting a belt or putting on a belt or whatnot. All right, so now back to belt or no belt. Assuming, okay, that you are proficient at bracing. That's what I'm assuming right now. You got that down. It's important to note that belts are not magic. So if you don't know how to brace and you just put on a belt, it's not magically protective of your spine and midline. And as a matter of fact, if you don't know how to brace and you stick on a belt, you might be going down a potentially dangerous road, because it could give you a false sense of security and a false sense of protection of like, all right, well, hey, I'm belted up now, let's break out the big weights and move some iron. But if your core is still loosey-goosey because you don't know how to brace, the belt isn't going to save you. So again, assuming that you know how to brace and proper lifting technique. Those are the assumptions that I'm making. You've got proper lifting technique, you know how to brace, okay, then we've got the belt. Belts can be useful, all right, which is why I'm not in the camp of always use a belt or never use a belt. Belts are useful, they're another tool. Belts are useful because if you understand how to brace, they give you something rigid to brace against. So if you remember what we talked about with bracing, the bracing wasn't sucking your stomach in and sucking your abs in. It is to some degree pushing them out, to some degree an expansion. Well, if you're pushing out and there's something rigid tucked in hard against your midline, it gives you something to brace against. And that is a very useful tool to assist in the bracing that you are trying to accomplish. So belts aren't all right and they're not all wrong. Personal preference, I don't use a belt, and I don't want that to influence anyone watching or listening to this as to what your decision is, okay? I know that I'm not in the majority, and that most people do use a belt. I just grew up not using one, and now even understanding it and understanding bracing and everything just after so long of not using one, it feels more foreign to me when I have it on than helpful. And so I just don't use a belt. But I also will say I'm trying my very best to be very cautious and very mentally and physically engaged in what my body has going on when I'm lifting. And when things get into that arena, that it feels like that's heavy enough for today, I try to be smart these days and not let my ego get in the way, and the bar gets racked and we're good and life goes on. We walk away happy and healthy. And I also try to, on top of the technique of effectively bracing, do a lot of good stuff to strengthen my midline, such as the hip and back extensions, our plank holds, the L-sits, all that kind of good stuff that we do. It's personal preference whether you do or do not use a belt, but the overwhelming majority of people that I know, like, and trust use them, find them very helpful, and you will probably have that same sort of experience. Adrian, for your question in which you were curious about, is there a certain percentage at which time it would be good to throw on a belt? There is no team of scientists that have not left a shadow of a doubt, and everyone is in complete agreement with this particular percentage, and and it's right above this and wrong below this. So there is a large amount of opinion on this as well, and just anecdotal evidence. But from powerlifters that I've chatted with and whatnot, and done a bit of reading, some will say that in the neighborhood of 80 to 85%, you want to go ahead and belt up. And if you are below 80 to 85%, there's some sort of a general opinion of, maybe don't wear a belt. and that gives you the opportunity to do both. So at the quote-unquote lower percentages, even though 75% is still plenty heavy, who's kidding who, but at the lower percentages, that gives you the opportunity to work on your bracing and body mechanics without the belt, without something to press against. And then at the near maximal and higher percentages, you still obviously have to work on all the bracing that you would do without the belt, but you're getting the opportunity to do it now with the piece of gear. So you get a little bit of the best of both worlds, so to speak. So, Travis, Adrian, hopefully you found that helpful in some way, shape, or form. Okay, final question here, and again, another good one, as always, from the old Linchpin community. Tim M. Tim, where were you here? It's basically about dumbbell box step-ups and the devil press, but I want to make sure that I get it proper here. Okay. Yeah, question about the two movements, dumbbell box step-ups and the devil press. Dumbbell box step-up is regularly programmed as accessory work, but not regularly in the workout of the day, even though I know it has been programmed in the past. And the devil press does not usually make an appearance in either. Just curious your thoughts on these movements as potential candidates to be incorporated into future workouts and not just the accessory work. Wonderful question. So let's see. Dumbbell box step-ups. Oh, Travis, cool. So Travis, who asked the question about weight belts, chimed in. 100% agree. Thanks for answering. Very cool. Yeah, my pleasure. So Tim, dumbbell box step-ups. I'm a big fan. I'm a huge fan. I'm one of their most ardent supporters. And as you stated, they make a regular appearance in the accessory work. Great, just single leg, unilateral strength builder. I love dumbbells in general. I think everybody should touch dumbbells more frequently, do single leg work more frequently, so absolutely adore them. And again, that's why we see them regularly in the accessory work. I put them, as you said before, in workouts of the day, but not with incredible frequency. They certainly come up in the accessory work far more. And it's not right or wrong, good or bad, right? The dumbbell box step-up would just be one of many ways we have to accomplish the singular goal of building leg strength below parallel, of which we have many options as to how to do that. So we accomplish that goal in a variety of ways, and your question is potentially, could this dumbbell box step-up, which we see regularly in accessory work, make its way into more just workouts of the day? Maybe. The only thing which I don't do it more frequently, and this might just be my personal biases or opinions or just observations, is there's the potential, okay, not the reality, but there's a potential in a multi-round workout that has various other elements. Fatigue is setting in, you're getting tired, neurological components are starting to slide because you get that workout fog happening. The coordination, accuracy, agility, and balance starts to become diminished as the workout goes on. And now in this fatigue, I don't want to use the word clumsy, but just getting tired and fatigued in the workout, somewhere around 2, 3, 4, or 5, somebody's grabbing a pair of dumbbells and stepping up on an elevated platform with one leg while holding loads in their hands that potentially would have a degree of wobbliness that wouldn't make me smile ear to ear. Okay? So now here's the caveat to that, and this caveat should apply to dumbbell box step-ups in accessory work in a workout or any movement on planet Earth ever, which is personal responsibility and accountability are a wonderful thing, and they should be, front and center on this movement or any other movement. So I would hope that, let's say we programmed dumbbell box step-ups in a challenging workout that caused great fatigue and it was multi-round, that if in round 2, 3, 4, or 5 the athlete felt that they're like, whew, getting kind of tired here, getting a little wobbly, legs are getting a little jelly, whew, this last set of dumbbell box step-ups is going to be a beast. I would hope and pray, from everything that we've tried to get across here at Linchpin about removing ego and making smart decisions, that even if they looked at the clock and they had a time in their head that they wanted to beat and they knew they'd have to really push it on this last set of dumbbell box step-ups to get that time, but they were like, legs are feeling wobbly, I would hope they would just set the dumbbells down, let themselves calm down for a second, let the clock continue to tick, let that time they were so very much hoping to get just fade away, And then when they were confident that they could do the dumbbell box step-ups in not some sort of a wonky way that would, potentially do something to their lower extremity or knee because they're so fatigued, then they would continue. Maybe I'm just being, crazy and over the top with that, but those are the kind of things that go through my head. However, in the accessory work, the workout's over, right? The accessory work's not for time. Not for time, we're just doing 30 or 40 alternating dumbbell box step-ups as just that, an accessory leg strength builder. And I think a little bit of that potential concern that I just said are removed when you can do it when you feel like it, at the pace that you feel like it, with no external pressure. And compared to a prescribed workout where we may prescribe the loading and we may prescribe the box height, because most of the things in workouts are prescribed, when we have the dumbbell box step-ups in the accessory work, we very intentionally say, you choose not only the loading, but you choose the box height. Because it also doesn't make any sense if I say, all right, we're going to do 50 dumbbell box step-ups, 24-inch box for the gentleman, and then I've got one guy that's, 6'5", another guy that's 5'5", and the guy that's 6'5", when he steps up on it, well, his hip crease is not below the top of his knee. He's actually not getting that leg below parallel. And the guy that's 5'5", basically has his knee in his face because he has to get his leg up so darn high, and he is profoundly struggling and overexerting to try to get these pair of 50-pound dumbbells up in the box in the orientation that his leg's in, that I would much rather have somebody with the dumbbell box step-ups choose whatever box height for you, whether it's 12 inches, 18 inches, 20 inches, 24 inches, whatever it is, that when you have 1 foot on the ground and 1 foot up on the box, that elevated leg, your knee for your height and your body structure, that knee is just, a couple inches above your hip crease. Perfect. That's the right box height for you. Do some dumbbell box step-ups, get tremendous benefit out of them, develop some just animal, crazy, awesome legs, and be good to go. And removing that out of the equation is probably why more frequently you'll see in the workout for time something like a dumbbell walking lunge as compared to a dumbbell box step-up. So, the devil's press. Okay, the devil's press. Let me start out with this statement that may, I don't know if it'll chap some people's behinds or whatnot. You could live your entire life on the planet and never do a single devil's press and be utterly and completely fit and have no worries on planet Earth. Period. Now, after I said that potentially inflammatory statement, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong with working it in either. But if we look at what the movement is, you're just getting yourself and some loading from the ground to locked out overhead. That's it. And I think people love the name, quite frankly. We can accomplish that same goal in a large variety of ways, from burpees to dumbbell burpees to dumbbell burpee into a squat clean thruster, from dumbbell burpee into a power clean push press, things of that nature. All things which get object and body from ground to object locked out overhead. Good to go. So we're accomplishing, in general, the same thing, the same range of motion, so to speak. Now, there are some nuanced differences. And some of this actually, again, relates back to what we're talking about there with midline stabilization and bracing and some things. Sometimes, and this also relates to what I just said about personal responsibility and you being in charge of your own movement and your own midline stability. What could potentially happen with something like the devil's press is you're down there in the burpee, you jump your feet back up, your hands are between your feet, dumbbells are there, and you're going to get this kind of just oomph, swing, hip opening, to get the dumbbells to swing out away from your body. Then they start to come up towards your face to end up in a press overhead. Well, the pull from the dumbbells being off the ground to when you're hunched over, you better be really cautious and mentally engaged to make sure that you have your spine ideally in a position that you would be proud of. And it can just be really easy in that position with the clock running to not have it be in a position that you would be super proud of. Now again, if you are and you're cognizant and you're mentally locked in and the midline's solid, good to go, rock on. I got no drama with that whatsoever. I would just say make sure you're acutely aware of how your body's moving in space when that happens. And one thing that I will say I do like about the devil's press is since the weights are drifting away from the body, okay, as compared to had we done a dumbbell burpee into a power clean and push press, with the power clean, the line of action is going to be much more straight up. Those weights are going to stay much closer to the body, right? They're going to end up in the rack position of the shoulders, and we'll dip drive them overhead. And that will obviously require a nice explosive hip opening to have that happen. With the devil's press, when the weights come up from the ground and they swing out from the body in this larger arc in which they're going to wind up overhead, to get those same weights to the end position of overhead without staying tight to the body and passing through the rack position, it's going to require a more dynamic, potentially more powerful, aggressive hip opening, which can be a good thing. Who doesn't want to develop a really powerful, controlled, aggressive hip opening? So I do see some benefits in there as well. And I'll tell you what, Tim, we'll put some in there for you. You and me, buddy. I got you, buddy. We'll put some in there for you. I just finished up the next 4-week block of training, and we're in the process now with Beyond the Whiteboard of getting it all uploaded. And so the next 4-week block of training as we record this goes from January 25th to February 21st. Okay, so now when I start programming the next 4-week block of training, which will begin on February 22nd, 2021, you know what I got? If you're watching the video here, post-it note, bang, watch this. Tim, your suggestion has made it onto an orange post-it note on my desk, which, by the way, is not easy to do, so congratulations. Boom, devil's press right there. I will come up with something gorgeous involving the devil's press that will put some sort of a twisted smile on your face, I hope. There's just something else that I wanted to say about that. That might have been it. You know, and the only thing that I'll say about the devil's press also, and it'll be a programming consideration, is, you know, a lot of the workouts that we do involve, you know, with the dumbbells in general, will be a pair of 50-pounders for the men and a pair of 35s for women, which I've been very vocal about saying that I love dumbbells, and even after 16 years of CrossFit, there are some times that I walk out into the garage, I look at the 50s, and I go, no way, and grab the 35s. With something like the devil's press, since it doesn't do what I just said, since it doesn't do what you would get in a burpee to a power clean to a push press, you know, where you've got the weights close to your body, you're going to feel very different. If I gave you a pair of 50-pound dumbbells and you did a dumbbell burpee into a power clean, into a push press, it would be very challenging because those 50s are no joke, right? Now if I gave you the pair of 50s and you got them from the ground to overhead, also with a burpee by doing a devil's press, they would feel heavier than they did on the power clean and the push press just because of the line of action. And so when programming them, it's probably going to be a better call for the gentleman to be prescribed, most gentlemen anyway, to be prescribed a pair of 35-pound dumbbells for that movement, and most women a pair of 25-pound dumbbells. Of course, that may vary a bit. That may run into some issues if most guys have accumulated a pair of 50s, most women have accumulated a pair of 35s, but it is what it is, right? That's why I always talk about scaling and modifications, and so you can figure something out. And so we may also just have to give on the side a barbell version of the workout in case you don't have a dumbbell loading that is appropriate for that. And the barbell workout will probably be not exactly the same, but close, you know, because you're not going to, while you hold the dumbbells during the burpee and swing them off the ground, you're not going to do that with a barbell, right? And so you're going to do probably a burpee or maybe a bar facing burpee. Then after you do a bar facing burpee, you'll grab the barbell and do either a squat clean or a power clean and push press and something like that. So yeah, so that should be that. Hopefully there were some, as I said, there were some fantastic questions. Oh, wow, we've already been going about 50 minutes. I'm always shocked by this. So let's end with making another note so I don't forget. And barbell option. Okay, my handwriting is terrible. Okay, let's end with a couple of the Linchpin shoutouts. Again, just screenshots that I've taken in the private Facebook group over the course of the last week. So the first one is from Ryan G. He had a great post, and I was curious to see what the answers would be because he had me intrigued. And he said, any young athletes around? Just wondering what the demographic of Linchpin looks like. I'm currently 24 years old and loving Linchpin, but he says a lot of his friends enjoy higher volume. They're not a one workout a day kind of a person. And so, thoughts. We had 52 comments on there. People really enjoyed it. And I was amazed to learn that we've got athletes, multiple 18-year-olds. One gentleman or woman said they work out with their child who's 15. A lot of people in their 20s, far more than I thought. Good on you, everybody in your 20s. You're making intelligent decisions far earlier than I did in my life. And then, as expected, we've got a lot of people in their 30s, a lot of people in their 40s. We've got plenty of people in their 50s as well, and I know we've got a couple people even over 50, but they didn't happen to comment on that post. So to have a range of people from 18 to 59, who was the oldest individual who commented, all doing and benefiting from the same workouts, because CrossFit works, by the way. It's not because I'm a genius. It's because CrossFit works. The methodology is amazing. It was just really cool. It gave me, it made my day to realize we had that sort of breadth and depth in the community. Okay, Catherine N, next one. She's just saying thanks for the daily videos that we include with the workout of the day, so I'm glad that you like them. She says it's one of the best things about the private track. And she posted on the day that we had, it was push-ups, double unders, and deadlifts at a certain percentage. And it was like 5 rounds. I think it was 5 rounds and 30 push-ups per round, right? Talk about midline stabilization, which we spoke about earlier in there. And let's see. She just took to heart what we talked about with quality push-ups, and she had a video of her doing push-ups, and they were 100% legit. So good on you, Catherine. Those are some pretty sweet push-ups. Amanda M, just a quick shout out. She said she's been struggling with her weight for a little bit, had some other stuff going on in her life, and we had a bit of a brutal long workout happen recently that it started and ended with a mile run. How fun is that? Started and ended with a mile run. And she's like, these runs are gonna take me forever, somewhere over, maybe 12 minutes is what I'm expecting these things to happen. She did her first run in 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And then at the end of the workout, after doing all kinds of crazy stuff and being fatigued, she did her final run in 8 minutes and 47 seconds. Congratulations, putting in the work, absolutely crushed it. All right, let's see. Leanne V, just basically says she's going to be doing the Open. She's fired up, and a big reason that she's going to be doing the Open is because of all of you out there in the CrossFit Linchpin community being so encouraging and supporting and embracing scaling is the big thing. She said she used to feel maybe some pressure that if I couldn't do it prescribed, well, maybe I shouldn't do it. She's like, but this community makes scaling and modifying things so cool and acceptable that she's fired up to do the Open. She's going to do it scaled, and she's going to have fun. So that makes me very happy. Kevin, you just posted this today. Kevin P, this post came in about 2 or 3 hours ago about Nate. We did Nate yesterday. And basically he's saying, let's see, he beat his Nate score from the last time we did it by 4 rounds and set a new lifetime PR of 2 rounds. His lifetime PR happened 5 years ago, and now he set a new PR by 2 full rounds. And he also says that right now he is 48 years old with a 16-month-old and another on the way. And I'm honestly shocked at the improvement. Super excited and grateful for the awesome programming and community. That is real life right there. You've got a guy with a 16-month-old, another one on the way, hitting a Nate PR at 48 years old. That is cool. And then, last one. Creative Nate is what I labeled this one. This is from Eric F. Didn't have access to rings today, and you need rings for Nate. And so what he did, he subbed 4 bent over dumbbell rows and 4 push-ups in place of the 2 ring muscle-ups. He used his kitchen table for pike push-ups. Holy cow, my shoulders are smoked. That was a real grinder for 20 minutes. I enjoyed it. Eric, that sort of creativity, you made a complicated workout like Nate happen with extraordinarily minimal equipment, and then sharing that in the private Facebook group so other people can learn on it and exchange ideas. That is 100% what it's all about. That put a huge smile on my face, and that again is why we do. That's why we do the Linchpin conversations. That's why we post CrossFit Journal articles. That's why we have these discussions. The more intelligent and well-rounded we can make our community and understand why we do things, what the intent of the workout is, how the body moves, and when you find yourself in some sort of a position or location that you have to make some sort of a modification, you've probably got a decent idea how to do that. So that's the goal. Keep up the great work, everybody. Enjoy your rest day. If you're Ben over in France, who's kidding who? He doesn't believe in rest days. The guy's insane. So Ben, hope you're not enjoying your rest day. Everybody else, I'll see you in the private track. Talk to you later.